Hey everybody, Nicolae Miu took the stand yesterday in his own defense, and as you all know, a defendant taking the stand is a rare occasion, but in a self-defense case, you're probably going to see it more often than not. He's got to explain to the jurors why it was that he pulled a knife, stabbed four people, killing one person on the Apple River in Wisconsin. He's charged with first-degree intentional homicide. But as you all know, it's fine. It's easy to put a defendant on direct examination when he's being questioned by his own attorney. Where the rubber really hits the road is when the prosecution starts to ask questions on cross-examination. This is an experienced prosecutor in this case. Let's go ahead and jump right in. We'll take a look at this cross-examination and see how he did.
David, you've been drinking that day, right?
Yeah, I had a
And showing us
beers.
is Exhibit 12A. Recognize that?
Yes,
That's the group photo of you folks from the beginning of the river.
Yep.
In fact, you're holding a beer.
correct.
Okay, right off the bat, what I love about this is that the prosecutor's doing two things. First of all, he's setting off the tone as you guys were drinking. I mean, the jurors have heard this before, but now it's like, let's remind everyone what this is all about. This man was intoxicated at the time, by the way, jurors, wink, wink, wink. And I love that he's approaching the witness. A prosecutor needs to project the idea that they own that courtroom, that this is their environment. Something I would do all the time on cross-examination as a prosecutor. Move exhibits around, take control of the evidence, approach the witness, let everybody know that you own that courtroom. It's a small thing. I think it's a very deliberate thing that's taking place here in this case, though.
Looks like everybody in your group has some sort of alcoholic beverage.
Looks like it.
You see numerous people in your group with these phone cases around their necks.
Yeah.
And as you're going down the river, you saw lots of people with phone cases around their necks, right?
Mm-hmm.
All day long?
Yeah.
In fact, River's Edge sells or rents out those phone cases, right?
I don't know that.
Did people in your group rent or buy phone cases from the tube rental?
I have no
stand?
idea.
All right. You've testified that you were told to bring the knife before you left your home, right?
Correct.
And the reason for bringing your knife on the river was to cut strings or ropes for the tubes, right?
Correct.
And that was the reason you brought it.
Correct.
In fact, you told the police that after your tubes were tied together, you thought you put your knife back in the car, right?
Correct.
In fact, it was in your pocket.
Yes.
Was it in your pocket the whole day?
No.
All right, well, we're going to get to that. Once the tubes are tied together with the rope, and you said that you thought that you put it back in your car, you don't have a reason to have the knife anymore, right? It accomplished its purpose, right?
I didn't know that at the time.
Right?
Okay, this may be a small thing, but already you can see the witness is behaving a little bit differently because he doesn't know the questions that are coming, and he doesn't quite have his questions and answers prepared. And so he's going to stall a little bit, and his demeanor is going to change a little bit. And again, the prosecutor has now introduced in front of the jury, reminded them something they already know, but reminded them, one, this guy's been drinking, and two, he's carrying a knife, and three, he's got no reason to have that knife. Let's see how he begins to develop this even further.
Did you tell the cops, the police, that you didn't think you were going to need it, and that's why you thought you put it in the car?
I may have.
All right. Were you present when Steve Kaufman, who owns River's Edge, testified first day of the trial?
Yes.
And you heard him say that they sell pre-cut cords for $1, right?
Right.
All right. And then did you see in the picture, when you got on the river, you were wearing that long sleeve camel shirt, right?
Mm-hmm.
A hat and sunglasses?
Correct.
All right. Ariel's phone was in one of those cases, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I can see it.
All right. And is it your understanding that those cases are float cases?
That's what I was told.
All right. And you told Lieutenant Hart that it was in a float case, right?
Correct.
Once the phone disappeared, there was conversation amongst the folks in your group about whether it was even worth it to go look for it, right?
That's what I learned.
And in fact, you were told that they didn't care about the lost phone because they had insurance to cover it, right?
That's what I learned here, but I don't remember that as a conversation.
Nobody asked you to go look for the phone, right?
Correct.
You chose to do that on your own.
I volunteered.
And in fact, members of your group were a little annoyed that you were stopping again so quickly after having been at the hideaway where you'd stopped for lunch.
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
Did you hear anybody in your group say, why are we stopping again?
I didn't stop the group.
The group stopped when you decided to go off on your own to look for this phone, right?
Speculation.
Overruled.
Right?
They already stopped. I got off the tube to look for so I didn't stop them.
In any event, you're the one who insisted on looking for it. Nobody asked you to do that, right?
Objection.
I mean, I can kind of see where he's going here, but he might be promising a little bit too much with the jury. Yeah, I mean, I understand calling into question why it was that they stopped to look for the phone in the first place, but if he's trying to turn this into some sort of super nefarious reason that he had ulterior motives, and I think that's exactly where he's going with this, you might be trying to sell too much to the jurors in this case. And why do that? You've got a great case when it comes down to stabbing people in response to a mob. And I understand people have some strong feelings about that, but I'm saying from the prosecutor's perspective, he's got a strong case. Why try to turn it into something more nefarious, like I said, than it already is?
Sustained.
And when you left to go look for the phone, you had your goggles and your snorkel, right? You knew that the phone was in a float bag. At least that's what you told police afterwards, right?
Mhm.
Is that a yes?
Yes,
So the phone and the float bag would have been floating, right?
supposedly.
All right. And so you wouldn't need a snorkel and goggles to find a phone floating on top of the water, right?
I wasn't sure if it was actually floating or not. Never tested it.
All right. Well, you would agree that a phone has some weight to it.
Yes,
And if it wasn't a float bag, it would sink to the bottom, right?
yes,
Where it was dropped.
correct. Well, or remember, it's a river, so it could have flown down.
The river has current, right?
Right. So it
If
could
I can
have,
approach, I'm going to draw something here.
Yes.
You remember when you met with Lieutenant Hart, you drew a diagram of the river.
Again, take control of the evidence.
All right. And this is your group up here at the sandbar, right?
Mhm.
This is the boys group down here. I'll put initials IS for Isaac Schuman, right?
correct.
This is the diagram that you wrote,
Mhm.
drew for Lieutenant Hart. The phone was lost over here, right?
Mhm.
Instead of looking downstream for it where the current was going, you went this way, across the current.
No.
To look for the phone. You made contact with Isaac Schuman's group on the other side of the river.
But that's not where I started looking for it, straight across the river.
That's where you ended up making contact with
I
him.
ended up there, but I didn't start there.
All right. The phone would not have floated across the current, right?
Well, I don't know where he lost it. That's where we pulled over.
I mean, it's these small little things. It may not seem like it's all that important, but it's a death by 1,000 cuts. As long as you are continuing to make it look like this person might be not telling the truth or not entirely forthcoming on small things, then maybe the jurors won't believe them when it comes to bigger things.
Pulled over. He could have lost it minutes before we even anchored.
So when you testified a minute ago that the phone was lost, where your group was labeled M, now you're changing that?
In that vicinity.
Objection. Mischaracterizes testimony.
Again, members of the jury, what the attorneys say is not evidence. Rely on the witness's testimony. Next question, please.
In any event,
Bell's
it's your
been wrong.
testimony that you had reason to go over to the south side of the river where Isaac Schuman's group was to look for a phone. That's your story?
I had reason to search in that area. I didn't know where that phone fell in the water. I don't think even Ariel knew where he lost it. We didn't drop the phone when we anchored. He dropped the phone before we got there.
Fair to say that at that point in the river is 150 feet wide,
Yep,
and Isaac Schuman's group was on the south side of the river.
correct.
Your group's on the north side of the river.
100 feet.
Rather than searching the north side, you went to the south side of the river. Is that fair to say?
Already looked in that area.
That's not what I'm asking. You went over to the south side of the river, right?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
You did, right?
What was that question?
You
again?
went over to the south side of the river to supposedly look for this phone, right?
I ended up there at that point, yes.
See, I think a lot of this is just trying to get under his skin at this point and trying to rattle him. These are not the hugest points in this case, but it's just any little thing that he can push on this man and continue to rattle him. You know, it's eventually going to wear him down and may cause further problems down the road.
And you chose to go over there and look for it, where these boys were.
Asked and answered.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
Oh,
You chose to go over to where these boys were to look for, supposedly look for this phone, right?
chose to look in that area, yes.
There was other areas of the river where there was, these boys weren't located that you could have searched until they floated past. Right?
A million other spots.
Sure. But you chose to go to that spot.
I didn't even notice those boys there at the time when I was searching.
You were present in court when Eric Williams, who was a member of your group, testified, right?
Right?
You heard him testify?
Yes,
And you were here when he testified that he had some concerns about you going over to snorkel by this group, Isaac's group.
I heard them.
And one of his concerns is that he thought that they would think you were a predator, right?
Objection, irrelevant.
Sustained.
I don't think he cares that that was sustained. You got the
Testified
question now.
that you didn't have your knife in your pocket the whole time, right?
Correct.
When you decided to go snorkel over by Isaac Schuman's group, you had the knife in your pocket.
Yes.
Did you go back to your group and get it?
No, I had the knife. I testified I did not have the knife in my pocket the whole time. When we pulled over there, I fixed my shoes. Then I left it in my pocket.
All right, but somehow, so when you get ready to snorkel,
Yes,
you've taken off your shirt, right?
yes,
Your hat,
yes.
your sunglasses.
Correct.
You left the knife in your pocket.
I forgot it in my pocket.
Well, on the video, we can see you touching your knife, right? You knew it was in your pocket.
Well, when you walk, it starts, yeah, but
It has weight,
Right,
right?
yeah.
So you can't forget it's there because it's got weight. Correct?
at some point, I forgot I had it in my pocket when, yeah.
You
When you
weren't,
walk.
you were not going to need your knife to snorkel and look for a lost phone.
Correct.
Asked and answered.
Overruled.
You weren't going to need your knife for that task that you set out to do, right?
I wouldn't even need anything.
But you brought it with you anyhow.
See, again, you got to be thinking on cross-examination. Where am I going with this, and what points am I trying to score? And at this point, I think it's just generally trying to wear this man down and generally trying to just call into question the story that he's told. But if you're trying to go with the idea that he had an intention of causing a fight, picking a fight, bringing a knife to cause harm to other people, that was a preconceived idea in his head, I think you're trying to sell too much to the jury. Make sure that the checks that you're writing can be cashed.
It happened to be in my pocket, yes.
When she got over to where Isaac Schuman's group was, they made it readily apparent they did not want you over by them, correct?
That's not true.
They didn't call you names?
Yes, but they asked me what I was looking for. And I thought they were polite people. I said, I'm looking for my lost phone.
They did not want you by them, and they told you that, right?
At some point, yes.
And that's the short video. You turn around and you're walking away, right?
Yes,
But then Joanne Cockfield calls you a raper, right?
yes,
And then you turn around.
yes.
You were angry.
I was not angry.
You were not angry that someone called you a raper.
No.
All right. You look at Joanne, who's filming you, right?
Yeah,
And for some reason, your testimony is that even though many people on the river have these phones and these float cases, you decided that was the phone and you needed to run up and check.
Objection, argumentative.
Sustained.
Your testimony earlier was you thought he had the phone, right?
I thought he had the phone, yes.
Right.
I wanted to investigate.
And you, instead of walking up and saying, hey, is that the phone I'm looking for? You ran up on these boys, didn't you?
I ran up and stumbled, and then I fell right by their, yes,
That's my next question. You're claiming now that you stumbled.
yes.
You've never said that before today, ever, to anybody, any law enforcement or anybody else. Right?
But I have seen the videos now.
Well, we're going to take a look at the video.
This is great. I mean, he's setting him up both from prior inconsistent statements. Now he's going to set him up through the video. Again, it's a use of all of the evidence. It shows a command of all of the evidence to the jurors. It shows that this prosecutor knows the case better than anybody. And the other thing I want you to take a look at is just the body language of the witness. I mean, he's just starting to curl up inside himself as he gets more and more uncomfortable here.
And since you reviewed the video, you know that before you ran up on them, you were touching your knife in your pocket to make sure it was there, right?
I don't remember that.
Well, let's take a look.
A little bit of attitude from the prosecutor, though. I would just say take it back a notch, sir.
That's you with your right hand touching your pocket where your knife was clipped in, right?
It appears so.
What is he on? Whoa! 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 Get away!
So you're claiming today that where you reach down and grab at these boys' legs where their tubes are, that was a stumble. Is that your story?
It's a good question.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
I know I hit a stone, yes, but I grabbed onto their inner tubes.
And you know where you grabbed onto their inner tube is where two of these boys had their legs draped over their inner tubes, right?
I see that.
And you made contact with their legs, didn't you?
I don't remember that.
Did you see it on the video?
I see it on the video. I don't remember actually making contact.
And as soon as you did that, these boys jumped out of their tubes to get away from you, right? You remember that?
Yeah.
And you held onto their tubes so that their tubes couldn't float away.
For how long?
Well, I'm asking you. You did.
Yeah, it looks like for a brief 1 second.
And you were searching through their tubes.
Or what?
You walked around their tubes. Rather than letting their tubes go so they could get back in their tubes and be on their way, you walked around their tubes.
So after my goggles dropped in the water, I went around their tubes to go to the other side and look for my goggles.
Let's talk about your goggles for a second, because you told the police, specifically Lieutenant Hart, that these boys knocked your goggles off your face and that you were looking for your goggles at that point, right?
I don't remember my interview with her, correct?
But you heard yourself say it in the interview.
Yes, yes.
And in fact, that nothing of the sort ever happened, right?
So the interview with Brandy Hart was not accurate.
What you said at the time is what you wanted the police to believe happened, right?
That's what I remembered at the
Okay.
time.
And from the video, you can see that you actually put your goggles in your mouth, so you would have two free hands to be able to grab onto these boys' tubes, right?
Yes.
So you were preparing for your stumble before it actually even happened?
Awkward
I wasn't
question.
prepared for anything.
These boys were calling you names to go away, right? After you grabbed onto their tubes, touched their legs.
I don't remember any of that stuff.
All right, you don't remember them calling you, asking you what you were doing?
Watching the videos, yes, but unnatural remembering, no.
Do you remember as you're running up, they're saying, whoa, 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 what's he doing?
I don't remember that.
All right, but you've seen it on the video.
Yes.
And then once you've made contact with two of these boys' legs and grabbed onto their tubes, they started calling you a pedophile, right?
I don't remember when they started calling me.
Do you remember them calling you a pedophile at all? Or do you just know that from watching the video?
Correct.
You testified that they were calling you names earlier, right?
Right.
And that upset you.
It did not upset me.
Okay? Your attorneys talked about your comfort scale and your fear scale. Let's talk about your anger scale, okay?
Mhm.
At the time you were called,
Love this. Love this. Love any time on cross-examination that you can use the line of questioning that was used by the opposing party. So that was a big thing that was used in the defense direct of the defendant, was his scale of fear. And good for them, because they need to show that he was in a lot of fear if he was going to pull a knife on a group of people. But I love turning it around now and saying, okay, well, we've talked about your fear. Now let's talk about your anger, which I'm more concerned with.
you're called a raper. What was your anger scale at?
Maybe 1.
1 out of 10?
Yeah.
And that was enough to get you to run up on these boys, grab onto them, stop their tubes. At a 1. Is that what you're saying?
Objection, argument, that's not what he said.
It's a student.
You don't like being humiliated, right?
Nobody does.
Your attorney has said that these boys were humiliating you.
Objection as to his making.
Sustained on the form.
You're claiming that you were being taunted.
Objection, did not testify to that.
Sustained. Form.
You can see the defense starting to get into their objections here now because they need to break up the momentum that the prosecutor's been building. I mean, these are form objections that he could easily change the question and get past all of this, but I think he's just, I think it's smart to just kind of move on, especially when you're not making that huge of a point, and continue the momentum.
You had testified earlier that your shoes, there was problems with your shoes, but as you can see from the portion of the video we played so far, those shoes didn't prevent you from running up on these boys, right?
Yes, they did. There was, if I had better shoes, you know, I could walk better, but I could still walk.
If you had better shoes, you would have been able to run up on them faster.
No, I mean, I could walk better. I wouldn't stumble. I wouldn't have a hard time walking.
All right, we're going to watch the video again, and I want you to, if you can, point out for everybody where you stumbled.
Smart to keep going back to that video. It's their best piece of evidence.
What is he on? Whoa! 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 Get away!
Did you watch it?
Yes,
So the stumble, is that something you remember or something that you think you see in the video?
something I remembered.
After you grabbed onto their tubes, stopped them, walked around their tubes, you took a few steps downriver and stood in the path they were floating in, right?
Objection as to form. Multiple.
Overruled. You understand the question, Mr. Miu?
Could you say it again?
After you left their tubes that first time, you took a few steps downstream and stood in their path where they would need to float, where they were floating, right?
For a few seconds, yes.
You didn't walk off to the south shore, which was close at that point, right?
I thought I walked far away from them. That they, I mean, I didn't even watch them anymore at that point, so I don't know where they were in you know, at that point in time. But I was still looking for my goggles. Now,
Are you denying that you stood right in the path of their tubes?
Objection argumentative.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
at that moment in time, yes.
Now, when you ran up on these boys and grabbed onto their tubes and made contact with their legs, you weren't saying anything at that point, right?
I see. That's called a question where you loop in everything else. And I love those. After you did A, B, C, and D, then you did E. And again, he's trying to point out, and he's doing a good job of this, of all of the steps that were taken by the defendant and all of the steps the defendant could have avoided to have avoided this death.
You didn't say anything like, hey, I think that's my phone or Ariel's phone.
I don't remember saying anything.
You've seen the video.
Right.
You just ran up and grabbed onto him, right?
It appears that.
With saying nothing. We can go up the screen. We're going to look at some more frames here. We're starting 20-second mark, I believe.
I mean, it's not that
He
this,
stood in front of their tubes, right?
it's not that
This is
he's
at the
doing
23-second mark.
doing poorly. It's just, it's
For
obvious
this,
he's not doing
moment.
as well as he
Right.
was on direct.
Keep going. Stop. At that point, you had the entire river open to move in any direction, right?
Right.
And you chose to just walk a few steps directly downstream from where their tubes were, right?
Correct.
The boys were yelling at you at this point, right? You remember that?
Yep.
They were making a commotion, right? They were loud,
Mhm.
and that attracted the attention of the folks in the Carlson group, right?
Mhm.
You've testified that Maddie Cohen walked over, right?
Yep.
You walked towards her,
Yes.
and the water level at the spot that you had contact with Maddie was about ankle deep from the video.
From the video, yes.
You told Lieutenant Hart you were standing in really shallow water, right?
Yep.
Maddie told you to leave the area, right?
She didn't say it that way, but yes.
She said, go, go, go.
And
She's like, she swore you too, but she was telling you to go, right?
yeah,
You didn't go.
I was trying to communicate with her what I was doing in the river.
You didn't leave, right?
No, not on the river.
Hold on.
Objection irrelevant of legal basis.
Overruled. It's relevant.
You did not leave, right?
I
At the
didn't
time
go
that
in
she
the
came up
direction. No,
When she came up and said, go, 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 you chose to stay, right?
I wanted to talk.
You didn't like the
Choices, choices, choices. You chose to do this. You chose to be in front of their rafts. You chose to not leave. Again, it's all of the ways he could have avoided all of this that you now cannot claim that you're using self-defense when you've created the situation. Not saying that's what happened in this case, saying that's what the prosecution is trying to present to the jury through this line of questioning.
fact that she was yelling at you, right?
I only had like 2 or 3 seconds of direct verbal or whatever.
And you clearly didn't like she was swearing at you, right?
Right.
And what you told her was not that you were looking for a phone, but that these boys took your goggles, right?
I don't remember what I told
Right.
her.
If it's on the video, did you say it?
If it's on the video, yeah,
You never mentioned you were looking for a phone.
Has he not watched the
I
video?
don't remember my conversation with
In
her.
fact, after you told her that they took your goggles, you never said another word, right?
After that,
Right.
of course I did.
Talking about your anger scale, at the point where Maddie Cohen was yelling at you and pointing at you and swearing at you, where was your anger scale?
1,
Not credible.
And even with your anger scale being only 1, you started touching, fidgeting with the knife in your pocket, right?
I don't remember that.
Let's take a look at the video.
I'm trying to decide if I like this whole thing about touching and fidgeting with the knife. I guess it shows that he knows he's got a knife and he's already starting to think about how he's going to use it. Also, it reminds the jurors that this is the only guy with a knife in this fist fight.
We're ready. It's timestamp 135.
Have these things ready to go, fellas.
That's you touching your knife in your pocket, right?
Correct.
And at this point, you've got your back to the 2 girls who were yelling at you, right?
It's possible.
So even though you were fearing for your life, you turned,
Objection. No, we said at that time.
Overruled. Let's get the question out.
you turned your back on these folks, right?
Where am I in that location as reference to the other people?
I get to ask the questions at this point, okay?
All right.
You're back at the 135 mark that we just watched. You've turned your back on these folks, right?
Okay.
Is that true?
Yes,
You
I
saw
see
it,
that. Yeah.
Right? You're touching your knife, but you got your back to them, right?
I see that in the picture.
Now he's attacking the fear.
And so at that point, you wouldn't have turned your back on these folks if you had fear of them, right?
Objection mischaracterizes his testimony.
There we go.
Overruled. You can answer the question. Yes.
We're going to approach here. I don't know how this helps anything out. I mean, a lot of what the defense does in these types of situations, and I apologize for the audio right now, but a lot of what they're doing in these types of situations is just trying to break up the momentum of the prosecution, cross-examination. Just make sure that they're not making it easy for them.
We'll play a
Just
clip
ask that
here.
next question, please.
We're going to play a clip here, Judge. Go back. We're starting at 126. Just play it. We can have the screen.
This kind of stuff, you got to have your
Stopping
visuals
at
and everything ready to
1:35.
go.
So in that clip, that's the point where you had waved at your friends, right? You turned your back on the groups of people that were in the area, and you're touching your knife, right? And at that point, you called out to your friends because I think you had said, and maybe I'm wrong, that your fear scale was going up at that point. Is that not right?
I see lots of people around me, and I wanted somebody to be on my side.
Right. Your fear scale was going up, so you tried to wave your buddies over, right?
Creeping up, yeah.
And as it's creeping up, you're fidgeting with your knife.
It appears that way.
At some point, and even though your fear level is creeping up at that point, and you've called for help from your friend, or at least waved for help, you turn your back, right?
Yes.
There we go. I mean, this is now where they're starting to turn the corner. This wasn't about fear. You've got a knife. You turned your back. You're not exactly worried about what's transpiring here as far as the level of aggression of everyone else, because you know you got a knife on you. I mean, that's the prosecution's argument. Again, charging somebody with first-degree murder, I think, is overcharging this case, and I think he's trying to do his best to sell it to the jury at this point, but it just might be a little too much.
At one point, you turn your head and you stare at the group of 17-year-old boys, right? Do you remember doing that?
I don't remember, but if I could see a video.
Put it into context, it would have been at the point when Maddie Cohen tried to turn you away from those boys. Do you remember doing that?
Yes.
And 1 second. If we can get the frame up. We're at timestamp 116. That's the look that you gave to those boys, right? At that time, at 116?
Yes.
That's the look on your face.
Yeah.
That's an angry look.
Not to me. I was annoyed, more than frustrated, but not angry.
At the point where you looked at the boys with that expression on your face, whatever it was, you had the entire river in front of you open to walk to, right? That's true.
Correct.
Good
And instead
question.
you chose to turn back around where Maddie Cohen was, right?
I stood my ground. I basically stayed in the same location. I didn't
Choices, choices, choices. You chose, you chose, you chose. You, sir, are not a victim here. You, sir, are the aggressor here.
go towards anybody at that point.
You didn't take a step away either, did you?
No.
And at that point then, that's when Riley Madison joins her. You've got Madison and Riley standing in front of you, right?
I suppose that's the time, yeah.
Two girls.
Yeah.
And these two girls standing in front of you touched your shoulders somewhat, right?
Mhm.
You never said yes?
Yes.
You never stumbled backwards or anything like that?
Wasn't a somewhat, but
Well, let's take a look at the video.
I keep on saying this, and I don't know why it annoys
We're
people.
going to start a little bit earlier than the part I wanted to start at. It's at the 135 mark again, if we can put the screen up.
If you're dealing in a case that's got a lot of video and visuals, and I've had cases like this, have these things ready to go. You got a whole team of people sitting there.
You take the screen down. Starting at 134. So at that point, you're touching your knife before Maddie and Riley are standing in front of you, right?
That's a good
here's that
visual.
way.
It's a really good visual for the jurors. The guy looks like he's arming himself.
Stop. You had said that your fear level was rising.
Mhm.
You had waved to your friends, right? That was the look on your face at the time, correct?
Mhm.
You're smiling.
I'm confused.
You're smiling.
I'm confused.
You're not smiling?
That's not a smile.
Yes, let's move on, please.
Can we get the screen back?
Sometimes, regardless of what the judge says, questions are evidence to the jury.
All right, so you had been fidgeting with your knife multiple times. You've got Riley Madison in front of you. I believe her testimony was she's a 115-pound woman. You got Maddie Cohen on your other side. This is when you choose to pull out your knife, right?
Objection as to form.
Overruled. Understand the question?
What does her weight have to do with me?
So you don't get to ask the
Oh, I'm
questions
sorry.
at this point. You pulled out your knife at this point with these two girls standing in front of you, right?
Yes,
And you held it down by your belt line, right?
yes,
And you opened it up, right?
yes.
And this is before you had been punched or anything like that. You had that knife ready with these two girls standing in front of you.
Objection.
That's it. That's it. That's the question right there. You had this knife ready. You had it out of your pocket. You had it in your hand. You had it open, and you had done all of this before you had been punched, and you've got two girls standing in front of you. Really, what is your level of fear as you're arming yourself with a knife? Now, listen, I'm not trying to say that how I feel on this case. I realize it's a difficult case and there's arguments on both sides, and he's also being surrounded by a group of people who are becoming more and more aggressive. But at the same time that the prosecution was able to distill this all down to this single moment, I think is fantastic to say, you're standing in front of two girls, and he calls them girls. You have a knife out of your pocket and you've got that knife open, and no one has physically attacked you at this point. To say that is problematic for a self-defense case is putting it lightly.
Objection as to use of the term girls and women.
Women, pardon me.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
And you didn't hold it up and say, hey, I have a knife.
Girls,
Right.
women,
To
love
me,
it.
that would be a threat.
Well, I'm not asking you that. You did not hold it up.
No,
And you didn't, in fact, you held it down by your side, right?
Objection asked and answered.
Overruled.
Isn't that what you did?
yes,
You didn't take a step back and brandish it and say, hey, back up, I have a knife. Right?
Meaning you weren't trying to use it to protect yourself and warn others. You were trying to use it as a concealed weapon that you were going to actually cause harm to others.
You opened it down low and then you held it down low by your side. Right.
correct.
And as you're doing that, you're smiling. Right?
That's not a smile.
Well, let's take a look at the video.
I'm overwhelmed and annoyed.
And that's you holding your knife down by your belt line, right?
Yes,
When you pulled it out and opened it up, you held it with the blade facing up, right?
I didn't pay attention, but in the video, yes,
And it becomes important later when you stab AJ because you didn't try to cut him down, you cut him up, right? Right?
that was not my intent.
Objection as to form.
Overruled. I believe the witness answered the question.
You had the knife blade up and you're saying you didn't know that?
I didn't pay attention.
As you're holding it there, you've got your thumb on the bottom of the handle, right? Right?
Yeah.
Blade up.
I see that.
Blade's pointing at, looks like at Maddie Cohen, right?
Yes,
Nobody else. I'll strike that.
Yeah, he knew he was going to
After you
get
opened
into a
that
bad
knife-
question there.
Would it be fair to say that your fear level went down a little bit because now you had your knife open?
no,
All right. Was your fear level going up at that point? I think you said that earlier.
The whole situation was boiling up.
So when you have your knife open, you take a couple steps backwards to get away from the situation.
I stood my ground. I stayed in place.
You never backed
That's-
up one step, did you?
No.
You had your knife out and you were.
That's another one. You never backed up one step, did you? No. If I'm the prosecutor, I'm asking for this transcript immediately after this examination, and I'm going to be using that in my closing arguments. You never took one step back, did you? You're holding a knife, you're looking at two girls, that blade is out, and you never took one step back despite all the fear that you're telling us here in court. Again, not an easy case. Not saying I'm pro prosecution or pro defense on this whole thing, but he's doing a good job of cutting down the elements of self-defense. Self-defense is a affirmative defense, meaning that is something that the defense has to prove. And so he's slowly, death by 1,000 cuts, no pun intended in this case, but slowly picking away piece by piece at that defense.
We were prepared to use it.
To defend myself.
At that point, there's nothing to defend yourself from, right?
I didn't know that.
If I understand your testimony today, now you're acknowledging that you did do something to Maddie Cohen, which started off this fight, right?
Objection argumentative.
Overruled. Yes, the question.
Objection, please, pro.
Yes.
Yeah, you can understand where the defense is going to try to prevent any of this type of testimony coming in as far as what did he do to this female member of that other group.
Mr. Smestad, would you please rephrase the question?
I will, Your Honor. You're testifying today that you did actually make physical contact with Maddie Cohen, right? Before you were punched or anything else, right?
I may have.
You don't remember that?
Well, I remember what I said, but I went over to, she was right in my face, right in my space, yelling, and I could smell the alcohol in her breath.
But you'd been drinking too, so it might have been your breath.
I didn't have vodka and all the other garbage.
My
Right.
point is, today you testified that you did something physical to Madison Cohen before you were punched, right?
Mm.
Correct?
I don't know if I touched her or not. It's possible that I did.
If your friend Sergio testified last week that he saw you push her and she went flying back a couple of steps, that's what happened, right?
Objection as to form.
Sustained.
Were you present when Sergio testified?
Objection as to form and relevance.
Sustained.
He's got to find a better way to get this out because this is important. Who made first contact physically? That's a huge piece. If you're the first person to make contact, if you are the one who is inciting the reason for you to use self-defense, then you don't get a self-defense argument. This is an important point that the prosecution should not step back from at this juncture.
After you pushed Maddie Cohen, only one person ever punched you, right?
From the video?
Right.
That's what I see. I don't remember what happened then at that time.
I'm not asking you what you remember. I'm asking what actually happened.
I got punched.
Objection, no foundation.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
We
Start.
saw in the video that only one person ever punched you, right?
Yes.
Objection.
It's Ross. It's not
Hold
you.
on.
And I broke.
Yes.
You can usually have a good idea of how comfortable the defense is feeling about their case or any witness, depending on how many of these sidebars they end up taking. Sorry, I'm going to try to get us past some of this noise here.
No, not that I know.
Let's play the video. Once you're knocked down in the water, AJ Madison comes up to you and pushes on your back, right?
Objection, no foundation.
Sustained.
We'll play the video.
Have it ready to go, guys. Come on. Again, you gotta watch this guy's just body language. His
You were pushed in the back by
shoulders
AJ Madison, right?
drooping.
No foundation.
Overruled.
In response, you got up out of the water, right?
Mhm.
You take your knife in your right hand with the blade up, right?
Objection is in narration.
Overruled.
That's what you did, right?
Still in my hand, yes, that way.
You jabbed it into his belly.
About the same time he hit me in the throat.
That's not what I'm asking.
Yes.
You jabbed it into his belly, right?
Yes,
Instead of pulling it out, you pulled up, right?
because I had so much time to think about it.
You pulled up.
I did not pull up.
Okay,
Look at the angle of my arm.
We're stopped at timestamp 156. You see your knife,
Yes,
how close it is to his jaw, his chin?
yes.
That's because when you stabbed him, instead of pulling out, you went up, right?
I was falling backwards with the knife in my arm, in my hand, and the angle of my arm was about the same. Just got hit in the throat.
In this,
Now this is an interesting point here, because this is so important. If he just used that knife as defense and he's just stabbing at people, we would expect to see just puncture wounds. If you've been watching this case and you saw the injuries to one of the gentlemen that survived this, they are horrific. It looked like he tried to gut them. So this becomes very important to the prosecution of, you didn't just stab, but you pulled up. You were trying to open this person up, essentially. And he can't concede this, but at the same time, how much of argument is the prosecution going to get into with this man? Is it enough to point out the ridiculousness of it, or are you going to try to get him to actually concede it on the stand? He's never going to concede it. I mean, if the one thing that they all talked about is that you cannot ever testify. I'm talking about the defense and his team talked about ahead of time in preparation for this, was that you cannot ever make it seem like you were trying to actually harm these people. You were only trying to defend yourself. Well, you're not just trying to defend yourself if you're trying to essentially fillet someone with a knife, which it appears from those injuries he was attempting to do. So this is no small point, but the prosecution just strategically has to start to think about, how much do I want to argue with this man on a point that he's never going to actually concede here.
this frame of the video, the knife's pointing straight up, right?
Yes,
You went in, pulled up, and it's by the time you got done up by his face, your knife's pointing straight up.
Objection, asked. Sorry.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
it's straight up.
At that point, Tony Carlson came in to break up the fight.
Objection, speculation. He doesn't know what Tony Carlson's doing.
Overruled. You can ask the question. He can answer.
I don't know what he was doing.
You know that he told Dante Carlson to back up, right?
Objection, no foundation.
Overruled.
Do I know from video and from testimony? Yes. At the time, I didn't know.
After you stabbed AJ Madison, you were pushed back into the water, right?
Just sorry, it's AJ Carlson.
Pardon me. No, it's not. It's not.
AJ Martin.
It's AJ Madison. He's not part of the Carlson family. AJ Martin.
Thank you.
Pardon me. After you stabbed AJ Martin, you were pushed back into the water, right?
Yes.
Nobody jumped on top of you.
No.
Nobody was kicking at you or punching you.
No.
You're just in the water by yourself, right?
Apparently, yes.
We're going to take a look at the video starting at 1:55. That's you in the water, still holding your knife, right? Pardon me, this is before you got up. At this point, you're standing there. There's nobody hitting you, nobody's punching you, nobody's kicking you, right?
Objection, that's the video. He's not standing.
Gentlemen, please come up.
This is something that can be annoying. what are we getting into arguing about what's on a videotape? You know what I mean? The video speaks for itself. If you believe that it shows one thing and another person believes that it shows another, then I've always been bothered by cases with video where they're trying to get the witness to testify to what the video is showing us. We see what the video is showing us. If there's something that we need to understand as far as what was in your mind or what were you thinking,
Next question, please.
go ahead. But when you're just asking, this shows that you're charging after them. Well, describe it however you like in argument, or describe it however you want when explaining it otherwise, but to have the witness testify to what's actually being seen in the video always creates a lot of frustration for me.
You were sitting in the water after AJ Martin pushed you over, right?
I landed on my butt
Right.
in the river.
But at that point, the fight didn't continue. People weren't punching on you, right?
At that time, I couldn't tell what was going on
Sure.
around me.
That's the point that Tony Carlson came over, was yelling at people to back up. Do you remember that?
From the video.
You don't have a memory of that in your head? He separated Dante from you, right?
Objection, no foundation.
Overruled.
Right?
It's from my memory. I don't remember that.
Tony Carlson never punched you, correct?
Correct.
He never kicked you, never pushed you.
Objection, mischaracterized the evidence.
Overruled.
And you turned around and you stabbed him twice, right?
Stabbed. Great use of that word in that question.
I couldn't see. I couldn't hear. I didn't know who was punching me, touching me, shoving me, nothing. I was fearing for my life.
You stabbed.
That's not how it works, sir. That's not how self-defense works. You don't just get to say, I was in fear, therefore I just started randomly stabbing at people with a knife. This is not brandishing a baseball bat where you can kind of wield it in a way that's going to fend others off and you're not going to cause a lot of harm. This is a knife that you're using to stab at people and slash at people's stomachs in a way that could take their lives, and in fact did take one person's life.
Stabbed the guy who tried to break up the fight twice, right?
Objection, form.
Overruled.
That's what happened, right?
That's what happened.
And luckily for him, he was able to block your first stab, so you stabbed him again, right?
I wouldn't allow that a question if I were the defense. Luckily, come on.
I had milliseconds to think.
Riley Madison, after you stabbed Tony Carlson, you turned around, you got up, you turned around, and you sliced Riley Madison through the left side of her body, right?
Sliced now. We've got stabbed, we've got sliced. I'm telling you, words matter. Setting the tone matters. Letting the jurors know exactly how they should be feeling about this case just through the questioning alone. If I'm the defense, I think I got to start objecting to these characterizations. I don't know if it's going to go that far though. With the judge, I mean, slice is a way of describing it.
Yes.
She wasn't punching you or kicking you.
She came at me and she had her hands on me.
At the time you stabbed her, she had her hands on you.
Yes.
This 115-pound woman attacked you while you're standing there holding a knife.
Great
Could have been
question.
500 pounds. I
Great
don't know.
question.
I'm sorry, sir, but
You've never told anyone ever that Riley Madison attacked you and that's why you stabbed her, right?
no.
You're saying it today for the first time.
I don't remember this whole thing.
Oh, he's starting to fall
After you
apart.
stabbed Riley Madison,
The wheels are starting
Isaac
to come
Schuman
off.
tries to push you, right?
And he lands his hands on my throat. Yes.
Yeah. But his hands originally weren't anywhere near your throat. They were on your shoulder and your chest, right?
I didn't take measurements, but yeah, from the picture, yes.
And as soon as he touches you, you stab up into his heart with your knife, right?
Objection, no foundation.
Stab up into his heart.
He went for my throat, and I defended myself. Yes.
Are you saying, we're going to look at the video.
Ask the question. Are you saying that because a guy grabbed for your throat, you had to stab him in the heart?
We're going to start at 2:02, and for anybody who doesn't want to watch, you might want to avert your eyes. Ready? We're at 2:05, the timestamp on the video. That's Isaac Schuman, right? If you
Right,
know,
right.
his left hand on your arm, right?
Right,
His right hand on your chest, right?
right.
They're not on your throat.
In that particular frame.
And
Correct.
your right hand is cocked, your elbow's bent, right?
Okay,
And you've got the knife in your hand.
yes.
Let's play it through, please.
See, this is what's interesting about these video cases as well, is that it's obvious, and the defense wants it to be, that this is fluid, fast moving. Nobody knows what's going on. Everybody's making split decisions, fog of war type situation. And the prosecution is looking at this in micro frames, frame by frame. At this moment, his hand's not on your neck. His hand's on your chest, and you've already got your hand cocked back. And that's true. When you watch it all the way through, you can't really distinguish all of that. It appears to be chaos, but frame by frame, it works for the prosecution's benefit. And they, I think, are doing a good job of doing that, slowing it down, these micro moments where decisions could be made rather than showing how quick and chaotic the whole event was. The only thing that needs to be worried about is if you're kind of desensitizing the jurors to the horrific visuals by showing it to them again and again. But I don't know if that's possible in a case like this.
And as he's pushing you, you jam your knife up into his heart through his ribcage, right?
After he
Jammed the
touches my
knife.
throat and pushes me back, yes, correct.
As your arm is moving up to stab him, you actually moved his arm closer up farther up your body with your own movement, right?
I don't know how to answer that. I didn't see that.
At the time that this incident happened, you agree you weighed 248 pounds?
Yes,
Not one of these people that you stabbed so far in the video were armed in any fashion, right?
Great question.
right.
You told an elaborate story about people pulling knives on you, right?
Objection, argumentative as to form.
Overruled.
Right? You made up that story?
To Brandy Hart?
Lieutenant Hart, yes.
I don't remember that, but I saw the video, yes,
At no point did anybody pull any knife on you, right?
correct,
You're the only person who had a knife.
correct.
Elaborate story, made up story. I mean, he does a really good job of using the vocabulary that he wants to use in his questioning.
Said earlier you had waited for your friends to come over because you were so scared, right? Right?
During we're moving back in time now?
Oh, yeah. Earlier you had waved. We saw
Yes.
the video. You said
Yes.
you waved to your friends
Yes.
because you were scared. Your fear level was at whatever. And in fact, Ariel came over, right?
Yes,
And he's in the group at the point that Riley Madison's standing there bleeding into the river, right? He's standing
Yes.
right behind him.
yep,
And at the time that you stabbed Tony Carlson, Ariel's right there, right in the group, correct?
I see that in the video, yes,
And when you stabbed Isaac Schuman, he's also standing there, right?
I didn't see him there at the time, but yes, in the video, yes,
So this narrative about it being 13-on-1, you had a friend there.
Objection,
Right?
argumentative form.
Overruled.
Your friend is standing right there. He's in the video, right?
in the video. I don't remember him being there.
You saw him coming, walking downstream.
I don't remember.
You waved for him, right?
I waved at my group.
At no point when you stabbed Tony, Riley, and Isaac, did you call out to your friend and say, hey, help me. They're attacking me, right? Even though he's in the frame and he's close to the action, so to speak. You never said that, right?
I was stunned. Couldn't talk.
Great question, bad answer. Answer he should, by the way, much of what makes a good cross is a poor direct. And I'm not saying that the direct was poor, but I'm saying the preparation for the cross was poor. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. What makes a good cross is poor preparation by the defense team here. And I'm not saying that's true across the board, but some of these questions they should have seen coming, especially these questions about all of the things that he could have done, all of the steps that he could have taken to have avoided this awful, awful tragedy. If you're saying that you're in fear, well, then be doing the things that a person in fear would do. Call for help, back away, run. Why not run? And listen, you can do all the, I was standing my ground, I was protecting myself arguments you want to make. Somebody ended up dead. You kind of lose that technical argument with a jury when somebody ends up dead and several other people are stabbed in horrific ways. You've got to have better answers for why you didn't call for help, run away. This is some of the strongest line of questioning now being taken by the prosecution. And he should have kept on going. He should have kept on asking those questions. You didn't.
The last person you stabbed was Dante Carlson, right?
Yes.
And this is in the sequence of events, everything else had happened, right?
Yes.
Objection at the form, I don't know what everything else.
Distinct.
All the other stabbings had already occurred, right? At the point that you stabbed Dante Carlson.
Stabbed,
Yes.
jammed,
He wasn't punching you at
sliced.
that point.
I was surrounded. People were coming at me. I just came up a couple of times, being punched in the head, punched in the mouth. I fell on river rocks. I was in pain. I was hurting.
Tony Carlson had broken up the fight between you and Dante never hit you again after that, did he?
Objection, that's.
Sustained form. Please rephrase.
At the point that you stabbed Dante Carlson, he was not fighting with you, right?
Correct.
He had not punched you immediately before you decided to stab him.
Correct.
In fact, he took a couple steps toward.
That's self-defense right there. At the point that you stab him, he wasn't fighting you. What are you? Self-defense is all about reasonableness. It's all about, was it reasonable under the circumstances to believe that your life was being threatened and therefore the use of some sort of deadly force like a knife was necessary? And was your response reasonable? Is it a reasonable response that after you're no longer being attacked, you now decide to start stabbing people?
Toward him to stab him, didn't you?
I thought he was attacking me.
So at that point, you stabbed 5 people and you decided to leave the area. Is that true?
I walked away.
You walked up to Ernesto, right?
Yes.
You didn't say anything about being attacked, right?
I was in shock.
You said they took my knife, right? To Ernesto.
I don't remember that, but that's what I said according to all the video. And
Well, if Ernesto said that, that's what you
Yes.
said.
Yeah.
You still got the knife on your person, right? Even though you just told them they took your knife, you still had it.
Here comes the
Right.
cover-up. Here
When
comes
I
the
reached the
consciousness
truth.
of guilt.
No. When Ernesto came walking up and you walked up to him, you told him they took my knife. It's the first thing out of your mouth, right?
I don't remember that.
Okay. Instead of walking to your group, you walked up to the south shore of the lake, of the river, right?
Yes.
And on the way, you washed off the knife in the river.
I don't remember that.
Well, you had blood on your hand and on the knife, right?
Yes.
When you left the area, right?
Yeah.
When you got back to your group, nobody saw any blood on your hands, or right?
Here's the cover-up.
Objection, foundation.
Consciousness of
At
guilt.
some point, you rinsed your hand and the knife in the water, right?
I don't remember that, but yeah.
What you do remember is throwing the knife up into the bushes on the south bank.
Right on the bank, yes.
This is what's clear about this cross-examination is how well prepared it is. And that should come as a shock to no one. But it's got a theme. It's got an arc to it as well. It's not just haphazardly jumping all over the place, which sometimes is a good cross-examination tactic just to keep the witness off guard, that they don't know where you're going next in your questioning. But this questioning has an incomplete arc to it. And now we're getting into the aftermath. Now we're getting into the cover up. Now we're getting into the consciousness of guilt. To me, this might be the most powerful evidence in this case, because you can understand the chaos and a horrible set of circumstances taking place where somebody might use violence that is not an otherwise violent person. But when you start washing up, disposing of the nice, telling police a made-up story, acting like you had nothing to do with the whole thing, you realize what you did was wrong. And jurors jump on that stuff. That's what they hang their hats on.
And then you finally walked over to your group, right?
As I was walking, I threw it away, yes.
No, no. You walked out of your way to get to the south bank to get rid of it, and then walked back across the river to your group, right?
Overruled.
That's what you did, right?
Yes.
We're going to play the video taken by Larry and Davis, Judge. It's grainy, but it's of some value.
You have many more questions?
Yes.
Well, maybe this will be a good time to take a break. Let's recess and we'll come back at 2:50. Please take the jury out.
All rise for the jury.
Mr. Smithstead.
I want to ask you some more questions about the stabbing of Dante Carlson. Is it fair to say that you did not know that Larry and Davis was recording that part of it?
No.
And you've seen that video here in court?
Yeah.
You are the person in the dark shorts, correct? In that video?
It was not very clear, so I couldn't make out who was who.
Right. If there's a person wearing dark shorts with the same body type as you in the video, is it you?
Third.
Hold on. Sustained.
Well, we're going to watch the video. We're going to watch it through at full speed. Your screen's not on.
You don't even have to see the video in this case to realize how horrific this all was. I mean, just listen to that. It sounds like a horror film.
We're going to play part of it, but slower, but not the end part. We're ready. What's the time for it? This is at the very beginning. Mr. Miu, do you see yourself in the left-hand side foreground wearing the dark shorts? Where the cursor's pointed?
I can't make out.
You don't know if that's you?
No.
Did anyone else on the river have the same body shape that you had at the time?
Objection, no foundation.
Sustained.
Just play it. We don't need him to identify himself. The jurors know.
You've been in court since the beginning of the trial, right?
Correct.
You've seen all these people testify,
Yes.
the people that were all involved in the incident, right?
Yes.
At the time that you stabbed these folks, there wasn't anybody else in that area of the river that had the same body shape as you, correct?
Objection, no foundation.
Sustained. It's the same question.
He's getting caught up.
You're
here
aware
on-
that
on
Dante
an
Carlson's wearing
unimportant point.
shorts that are black on the bottom and light gray on top, right?
That's what I learned.
We're going to go through it slowly.
What were you wearing that day, sir? Great.
Yes.
Is that similar to the person here in this video? Great. Let's go ahead and watch that person while we watch this video. Again, it's frustrating that they do this kind of audio, messing up our entire experience here. Let me see if I can get us past this.
Objection sustained, lack of foundation.
In any event, after you got rid of the knife on the south side of the river, you walked back to the north side of the river where your group was in the at the sandbar, right?
Yes.
Sat in your tube. Did you sit down in your tube?
Yes.
Eric Williams from your group, realizing that people were hurt, left.
Objection, form, lack of foundation that Eric Williams.
Sustained.
Did you see Eric Williams leave your group?
No.
At some point, did you notice he wasn't with your group anymore?
I didn't do a head count, sir. Sorry.
Okay. Did anyone else from your tubes go to help with the folks on the river that were hurt?
No foundation.
Overruled. You can answer the question.
I don't remember. I wasn't paying attention to anybody in my group.
When you went back to your tube, you put your shirt back on, right?
I was cold. Yes.
And you put on your hat, right?
Yes.
And your sunglasses.
Yes.
Eventually, you saw police officers and emergency medical technicians show up on the river, right?
Yes.
Wading up the river, right?
Yes.
Trying to help people that had been injured. And
Objection, no foundation.
Overruled.
you saw that happen, right?
Yes.
You didn't approach anybody to say you were attacked as far as law enforcement or EMTs or anything like that, right?
No, I just pooped myself. I was afraid to go in that area.
Even though there's
Sorry.
police presence everywhere, you were afraid to walk over there and tell them, hey, this is what happened.
Yes, sir.
So you got in your tube.
No. No. Don't buy it. Sorry. Don't buy it. Don't buy it. You just you just been attacked. You just had to stab someone. These are not the actions of a innocent person who's looking for help. The person that was described and testified to on direct would have gone running towards the police and said, "Thank God you're here. Oh my God, something horrible just happened. First of all, these people need medical attention. And secondly, I was just attacked by all of them. I'm horrified and I need protection and this is awful." That person doesn't just sit by, I mean, the prosecution makes it sound like he's putting on a disguise. They don't just stand by and wait for this to unfold and see if the police are able to put it together.
Tube and you floated down the river.
Not immediately. We waited there. We had people, from what I learned, not that I remember, that called 911, and yeah, I don't remember any of that stuff. So I don't remember.
So you remember waiting for Eric Williams to come back to join your group so you could leave?
I don't remember.
All right. Do you remember saying, let's go? You yourself saying that?
Objection, Madison answers communicated city.
Overruled. Overruled.
I don't remember.
Ernesto Torres, he's your best friend.
Yes.
You didn't tell him what happened as you were floating away?
I didn't talk to him. I don't remember talking to anybody. I don't even remember going down the river or up the river. I was just stunned. I don't remember anything.
You didn't tell Ernesto,
Nonsense.
I was afraid for my life and I did this.
No.
Come on. This is where I'm
never
telling
told
you that
Ernesto
I'm
that
telling you
acted in self-defense.
this is the most powerful stuff. All of that other stuff can be explained by the defense. None of this can be explained by the defense. And you don't just get to say, I was in shock and I was scared. That's not the explanation.
I don't remember talking to anybody.
You didn't say I was afraid they were going to kill me, these folks.
Objection, no foundation. City doesn't.
Overruled.
I don't remember.
As you were leaving the area, you saw folks giving CPR to Isaac Schuman, right?
I didn't see that.
All right. Eventually, you made it down to Village Park where the exit was, right?
Eventually.
And there's some video of you relaxing your tube, kind of playing in the water with your hand, right?
Objection as to form.
Sustained.
Do you remember seeing the video of you
I remember seeing the video.
relaxing in your tube before you got back to the end?
Objection as to form.
Sustained.
Did you see the video or not?
I said I did.
When you got to Village Park, your group exited the river, right?
Yes.
There was multiple police in the area, right?
Yes.
You saw a uniformed officer with his gun drawn, walking towards you, right? You didn't approach that officer.
I was afraid of everybody at
You were
that time.
you were afraid of the officer?
I was afraid of anything and everybody. I was afraid of anything. I couldn't.
Nope. 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 I was afraid of anything and everybody. Sir, you were afraid of the police because you just stabbed someone, and likely you understood at that point even that you killed someone. This is not you afraid of the situation that because you were attacked by a bunch of kids floating in inner tubes on the river that now you're all of a sudden afraid of the police. First of all, you don't behave afraid. Secondly, not buying it. Not a good answer and a question they should have seen coming. That's the part that bothers me from a defense attorney's perspective is should have seen this coming from a mile away.
I was still in shock, so I was afraid of everything. Yes.
You didn't approach the officer and say, they tried to kill me, I defended myself, nothing like that, right?
I don't remember saying anything like that to anybody.
You walked right by him, right?
All that is a blur. I don't remember it.
Once you got further up the path, though, other officers were able to pick you out of your group, right?
Apparently, yes.
They stopped you, right, before you could leave the park.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember the police stopping you and detaining you in the park after this incident?
I remember being stopped, but I don't remember the details.
Sure. You were aware that the police had a picture of you from the river, right?
Okay.
Do you remember that?
I don't remember.
Do you remember the police had to take your hat and glasses off to make sure that it was you in the picture?
Nope. I was focused on one thing only. Somebody with a bat that I've seen in the woods and across that whatever bridge, the little bridge, Rainbow Bridge, whatever. I was focused on him. I was very afraid of that person.
Did you ever say to the officer, hey, there's a guy over there with a bat and that's concerning me. Can you do something about it?
No.
Come on. I mean, listen, I understand that you deal with the evidence that you have. You can't make up evidence. So you deal with the evidence that you have. But these questions are not surprise questions. These are questions that should have been seen from a mile away, and there should have been better answers to these. And the answer of, I was afraid of some random guy in the woods when I have police officers in front of me, and therefore I'm not paying attention and can't remember and can't answer these questions. Come on. This is the problem, is that I think he is, for the most part, a credible witness. And what I mean by that is the way that he presents himself doesn't appear to be as someone who's just obviously lying. I think he's presenting himself well and with a level of veracity. But when you start to answer questions in this kind of ridiculous manner, it just stretches what jurors are willing to give you as far as credibility. And I just think that, this is that point in the cross-examination where the jurors start closing up their notebooks, because it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to believe much more of what you have to tell me because this just sounds too ridiculous.
You're put into a squad car, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yes,
Yes.
Sheriff Knudsen came over to make sure you were comfortable, right?
I saw that in the video. Yes.
You don't remember talking to Sheriff Knudsen?
No.
You remember him asking you, well, if you don't remember, you don't remember. We're going to play that video and then I have some questions for you.
This was also after a break.
Your Honor, this is the longer version of the video that's been referenced.
He should have been prepared for this.
House when you're ready.
Camera recording started.
Still doing all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's on?
Temperature's okay in here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I hear somebody got stabbed, and I fit the description.
Yes, you do.
All right.
Yep. So we're working through that now. Did you see that fight on the river?
I heard about it.
You heard about it?
Yeah, and I seen people gather around it.
Okay. All right.
And I went over to talk to see if somebody saw anything, but that's about it.
Okay.
Our whole group was pretty interested in finding out what happened.
Okay. And that's your whole group over there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I don't know. Okay, well,
Did you see anybody injured?
no.
You didn't see anybody injured?
No.
Did you see anybody fighting?
I heard people screaming at each other, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Screaming in anger or screaming in pain? Do you know?
Everybody's drunk, so I don't know. I can't tell the difference, but I would say, I don't know, just screaming. You know, yeah, calling each other names. And it's I've seen that all day. And we've all been drinking a lot. I'm sure they're drunk. I'm sure they're doing kids being kids.
Kids being kids. Where are you? Where's your group from? Where did you drive from today?
Oh, I drove from Prior Lake.
From Prior Lake.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I didn't drive it. We can get around.
Your wife and you? And you met the group here?
Yeah, but we know each other.
Okay. All right. As long as the temperature is good, I'll check back with you in a minute, okay? Thank you.
Come on. I mean, that's the case. Those answers are so obviously false and obviously intended to mislead and obviously consciousness of guilt that I'm telling you, the prosecution's case is most persuasive when it comes to this stuff afterwards. This is where the wheels begin to come off in his cross and where the defense should have been most prepared.
You lied to Sheriff Knudsen, right?
I don't remember that conversation, but yes,
You
I
told him that you heard there was a stabbing, right?
I don't remember any of this stuff.
You're fishing for information about what happened, right?
I don't know what you could say I was fishing. I don't know.
You asked him some questions about what had happened, right?
Again, I don't remember this conversation.
But you were pretending that you didn't.
That's also a bad. I don't remember this conversation. You don't look like somebody who's so in his level of shock that you can't remember this conversation later. Not a great way of approaching this.
Know what happened. Isn't that true?
No.
At the point that you were talking to Sheriff Knudsen and saying these things, you didn't know there was a video of what happened on the river, did you?
I didn't know whether I was dead or alive at that point.
You also didn't know that there was a video, right?
No.
When the sheriff asked you what had happened, one of your responses was,
That's great. You didn't know there was a video. The reason why that works so well is it shows the jurors, and I'm sure he'll make this very clear in closing argument if he hasn't already through this cross-examination, but it shows the jurors that this person is willing to lie as much as he thinks he can get away with. If he knew about a video, he might not be saying the things that he did. But not knowing about the video, he's going to say, I wasn't there. I didn't know about a fight. I heard about it later. I heard that someone may have been hurt. If he knows there's a video, he's not going to say any of that. I mean, this is all kind of obvious stuff, but it just shows that this is so calculated, not somebody in a state of shock. I'm telling you, this is the stuff that's going to cook him in this case. It's not going to be his actions so much as much as I think the defense was able to do some good for themselves as far as presenting self-defense. It all falls apart with the actions afterwards, the cover up and the consciousness of guilt.
it was kids being kids, right?
I don't remember any of that conversation.
You just heard yourself say it on the video, though.
So
Objection, no foundation.
I'll move on. Prior to being taken to jail, you were transferred from that squad car that you were in to a different squad car, right? Remember that? You remember at some point Deputy Thomason telling you that you were under arrest for homicide and attempted homicide?
I don't remember any of that.
You can't
When
keep
you spoke
going
with
back to
Lieutenant
that
Hart,
same answer, sir.
even though you'd been informed that you were being arrested for homicide, you pretended to know that, to not be aware that someone had died, right?
Objection is the form.
Right? When you were talking to Lieutenant Hart, you
Over here at the jail?
Yeah.
I don't remember any of that conversation.
don't recall pretending to not be aware that someone had died.
Objection assumes fact.
Sustained.
When you're talking to Lieutenant Hart, that was about 4 hours after you'd been arrested, right?
Yeah, that's what I learned.
And so you had time to put together a story, right?
No.
Great question.
You had 4 hours to come up with a story about what happened on the river before you were interviewed by Lieutenant Hart, right?
No.
You didn't have that time.
I didn't put a story together.
So when you told her things like, 2 of these boys pulled knives on me, you're telling the truth?
No,
That was a story, right?
correct.
And when you said that you somehow managed to grab one of the boys' arms and bend their wrist back and stab them with their own knife, that's a story you made up, right?
I told her what I remembered.
You remember doing that?
No, everything I told her is what I remembered at that time.
At the time you told her these things, you thought that you would grab someone's arm and stab them with their own knife?
As you can see, I was very confused.
Did you not testify?
See, again, it's like I was so confused that I thought I grabbed some. I mean, maybe that's all you've got. And maybe that's why, again, I understand. And I've been in the position of you can only argue what you have. And you can only try to explain what you have. But it seems to me like the idea of is there a tactic to just say, I was not truthful? I was not truthful. I was scared to death that I was going to get in trouble. Yes, absolutely. But that doesn't change the fact that what happened during that time was self-defense. All of my actions afterwards are deplorable, and I apologize for them. And I was scared I'd gone through something traumatic and I wasn't thinking clearly, and I was scared for how I might get in trouble for this. But that doesn't change the fact that I was using self-defense. I think that's better. But you try to say that I wasn't lying and I was under shock, and
Testify earlier that you
you're
lied
not going to go that
about
far with
the
me
knife,
on it.
That I did.
and then nobody else had a knife on the river except for you.
That I lied about the knife.
So it's impossible then for you to have twisted someone's arm and stabbed them with their own knife, right?
I saw the video.
No, I'm asking what you said to Lieutenant Hart.
I don't remember the interview, but I saw the video. And
You're aware,
I know that it's not right. It's not true.
not just a couple of little lies, but lie on top of lie to Lieutenant Hart, right?
Argumentative.
Sustained.
Well, let's talk about some of the things you told her. You said, these boys took the goggles off my head and threw them down the river, right? You told her that?
If that's what the video recorded, yes.
All right. You told her that these boys tried to pull down your shorts, right?
That's what I saw in the video, but I don't remember the interview.
That's a detail you added for your benefit, right?
No.
You said these boys attacked you, right? You told her that multiple times, right?
I saw the video.
Did you say that or not? Yes or
I
no?
said that in the video. Yes.
And you knew that wasn't true, right?
So in the video, I lied. I totally lied about the knife. I didn't remember a lot of details. I didn't remember of anything. I don't even remember the interview.
So which is it, sir? Are you lying or you can't forget? There's a big difference, right?
Looking at the video, it's I can look at it like anybody would look at it for the first time. I don't remember any of that.
You told Lieutenant Hart that these boys told you, don't run away from us. Remember saying that?
No foundation.
No,
In fact, it's just the opposite. They were telling you to go, right?
I don't remember.
You told her that a second boy had a knife, attacked you with the knife, and you took that from him, right?
That's what I saw in the video.
That's not true either, right? Right?
That's not true.
This is the wind up to the finale here. These are all the great points. This is why this was done well, because he structured it well. This is not just
You said that when you walked back to your group, and this is
thrown
talking to
together
Lieutenant Hart,
cross.
that Ernesto asked you if you had found the phone, right? Remember saying that to her?
I don't remember any of that conversation I had with her.
Yeah, that wasn't true either, right?
If this is all part of that interview, I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
So
That's what we're talking about. We're talking
Right.
about the interview with Lieutenant Hart.
then I don't remember the interview.
Okay, I still get to ask you questions about it.
Sure.
You were specifically asked, did you have a knife? Right? Do you remember being asked that?
I don't remember that, but I know I was.
Your answer to Lieutenant Hart was no, no, absolutely no, right?
Right. Which I lied. I know I lied about the knife.
See, here's the part that I don't understand. Is it that you can't remember this interview and you were in shock, or were you lying and you know that you were lying now? Like, which is it? It's either I don't remember and I don't know why I said what I said because I was in shock, or I was lying at the time. And if you were lying at the time, why were you lying? Have an explanation for that rather than just getting back to the idea that I can't remember this.
You said to her, why did they want to scare me with a knife? Right? Talking about the boys, I mean, the 17-year-olds. When none of them ever had a knife, right? Is that right?
Great. I
Apparently
mean,
not.
he knows how to argue during a question. I'll give him that.
You said I grabbed it, meaning the knife, from him because he tried to poke me with it. Do you remember saying that?
Nope.
You said a woman hit you in the ear. Do you remember saying that?
Nope.
You know that's not true, right?
Objection, foundation.
Overruled.
You know that's not true as you sit here now, right?
Right.
You told the police, and Lieutenant Hart, I think, that you thought it was two different groups of people fighting against each other, right?
I don't remember telling her that.
You know, as you sit here today, that was completely made up, right?
Again, I don't remember any of that you're talking about right now. If it's
See,
about the interview.
you can't
You
have
told
it
Lieutenant
both
Hart that you wanted
ways.
to stay in the area and watch the police come and arrest these people for fighting, right? That's what you told Lieutenant Hart.
That's what's in the transcript, yes.
When you were told that a person had died, your response was, is it because they fought each other? That's what you told her, right? That's how you responded?
If it's in the transcript,
His answers during this interview are so calculated too that you can't say I was so in shock I don't know what I was saying to the point that I can't even remember it now, when the answers are so calculated.
but I don't remember.
You never told Lieutenant Hart that you punched or pushed or did anything to Maddie Cohen, right? You left that part out.
Is that what it's in there?
I'm
Then
asking if you ever told her that.
I don't remember.
You didn't mention that you had stabbed and severely injured another woman, Riley Madison. You didn't mention that to Lieutenant Hart, right?
Objection, form.
Overruled.
You never mentioned that part.
I don't remember.
You didn't mention being strangled at any point, right?
If that's the transcript, then that we go by that, but I don't remember that interview.
And I think what you said earlier is that you were afraid you were going to die from being strangled, and that's why you stabbed Isaac Schuman in the heart, right? That was your testimony earlier. Didn't you say that today, this afternoon, here in court?
Yes.
That's not anything you mentioned to any police officer, right?
If I didn't mention, I didn't mention it. I don't remember that.
That's not an important.
Why doesn't he have an answer? Why isn't that answer canned and ready to go? This was not a line of questioning that is somehow a shock to anybody. That answer should be ready to go.
Important detail that you thought you might want to point out.
Objection, argument.
Overruled.
Everything is every detail is important. We all know that. But I don't remember saying any of those things to Lieutenant Hart.
Because you didn't say them, right? That's why you don't remember.
Is what?
You didn't say those things to her. That's why you don't remember, correct?
I don't remember what I said or what I didn't say to her. I don't remember even having an interview with her.
So you can't remember
Come
anything
on.
about what you told her, but when Mr. Nelson's asking you questions, you can remember all these feelings you had at the time. Is that true?
Great question.
Overruled.
You remember answering his questions about how you were feeling that day?
The feelings I had when I was attacked.
And when you were meeting with the Lieutenant Hart?
Objection, that's. Can you approach?
Yeah, you better approach. I mean, it's just frustrating because this is not I think the prosecution has a right to get into this. I mean, you were able to explain to us so much that you can remember, and now all of a sudden you've got amnesia about
Objection
one
sustained.
of the most
Please rephrase the
important
question.
things that took place that day.
You testified today a lot about remembering what you were feeling that day, right? When Mr. Nelson was questioning you, right?
Mhm.
So yes,
Yes,
but when you're asked other details that might not be so useful, you don't remember them, right?
certain feelings
Great
and certain,
question.
they stick to you forever.
I don't
But
know
they
how a
affect
lot of
into your
these
defense,
questions
right?
are not being objected to as argumentative. He just did an argumentative objection because he heard me in his head. But I mean, he's been objecting on so much other stuff. This is all argument.
Sustained.
You were examined by the jail nurse, the SART nurse, several hours after the incident, right?
Yes,
You never mentioned to her that you'd been strangled, right?
didn't mention to her a lot,
Sure.
not because I intentionally didn't want to do it. I didn't remember. I was still in shock.
You
But
didn't
now
mention
he
anything when you
remembers
told her.
this.
I don't remember what I mentioned to her.
I understand. You never at any point told anybody other than today that you had a sore throat or your throat was sore from after this incident, right?
I didn't tell anybody.
At any point during the day after you were arrested, when you're interviewed with people, when the jail or the SART nurse is talking to you, you never once said, oh, my throat is sore because Isaac Schuman strangled me, right?
I don't remember what I told those guys either. I was, like I said, I don't remember lots of the interaction I had with anybody here at the jail.
But today,
Yeah.
almost 2 years later, you remember that the next day your throat hurt. That's
Yes,
what you
because
testified to.
yeah, and my back.
You can
still have-
remember that detail, but not the other details.
My back still hurts right now.
The SART nurse specifically asked you when she was doing the exam, where are you hurt? And you pointed out some things to her, right?
I may have.
Yep. But you never once said, I had been strangled, I have an injury to my throat hurts, nothing like that.
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled.
I don't remember.
When she asked you what hurt, you said your butt hurt from the rocks. That was your response to.
You can tell that this man just wants to be done with this. He's beaten up, he's exhausted, he's tried his best, and now he just keeps on running home to I can't remember. And it's starting to look like the ref may need to jump in and break up this fight and call it a TKO. He did well, but he's starting to, the wheels are really starting to come off.
To the nurse, right?
Don't remember.
You had said that you're in poor health, or you were at least in poor health back on July 30th of 2022. You had your bypass surgery 2 years prior to that, right?
Mhm.
So yes.
Yes.
And typically people that have medical procedures like that are given restrictions on what they can do in their activities, right?
Yeah.
And you apparently weren't restricted from swimming, snorkeling, doing outdoor sports on a river, right?
I was for a while, but 2 years later, lots of the restrictions, I believe, got lifted.
Those restrictions got lifted because you got better, right?
You can say the doctor makes that decision, but he says if you feel a little better, do as much as you can.
And you were in fact snorkeling and swimming and doing things like that, physical activities, right?
Snorkeling in 15 inches of water, I was mostly I didn't even snorkel. That was not a lake but I was my whole plan for the day was to just flow down the river and relax.
You're able to run, at least you were back on July 30th of 2022, right?
Run.
You were able to run at that time, right? You weren't restricted from running.
I mean,
You didn't have a medical restriction to keep you from running, right?
no.
And in fact, you did run when you ran up on Isaac Schuman's group, correct?
You call that run? Okay.
This is kind of getting bogged down here.
That's not a run.
Prosecution
but
was
I wasn't running. I'm not
ending
allowed.
on
I
a
wasn't
good
allowed
note,
to
but
run or
this-
do any activities like that.
This
So I
isn't-
wasn't running.
This isn't
At the
doing
time
anything.
that this all happened, July 30th, 2022, you felt sufficiently healthy to go off on your own, away from your wife and your group, to go do snorkeling on your own, right?
It's what I felt.
I just want to check my notes. I think I'm almost done. If we can have Exhibit 4, Item 10. I'm going to ask Investigator Schultz to actually handle it since it's evidence, physical evidence.
Can you retrieve the exhibit?
All right, what's he got in store for the big finale here? Because you got to end on a strong note. Leave the jurors with that thought in their head.
If investigator can approach the witness, Your Honor.
Yes.
We're showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 4, I guess Item 10. That's your knife, right?
Good.
Yes,
That's the knife you used to stab these people.
that's a knife I used to defend myself with. Yes.
Good answer. Show it to the jury.
I asked you earlier about when you stabbed Dante Carlson. You agreed that he was not attacking you at the point that you stabbed him. He was the last person stabbed, right?
He attacked me.
Earlier, when you stabbed him, Tony Carlson had already broke up the fight, right? You said you agreed to that earlier.
At that time, everybody that came in contact with me attacked me.
Anybody who looked at you,
No, anybody that came in contact with me, I felt attacked.
you felt attacked whether you're being physically attacked or not, right?
I was in the moment, so I felt attacked by anybody that had either previously attacked me or was approaching to attack me.
So you felt like you could stab folks who are not attacking you at the moment that you stabbed them.
Objection. I demand this.
Great question.
You walked up to Dante Carlson and stabbed him in the belly, right?
I did not walk up to Dante Carlson and stab him in the belly.
I don't have any other questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Nelson?
I mean, it's good. It ended on a strong note there, showing that knife. I mean, whenever you bring the actual weapon into court, the room goes a little quiet. The room kind of slows down to see that weapon in court. So ending on a good note. I would have showed that weapon to everyone, but I think those final questions were really going at the heart of the elements of self-defense. So anyhow, love to hear your all thoughts on this. How did you think they did? How did you think the prosecution did? Again, this is where the rubber hits the road as far as if you're going to judge how this man testified. This was really it. How did he hold up here? Do you think he did himself any favors? Do you think he was able to convince the jury of self-defense? Thank you guys so much for joining me on this very special episode, this live reaction to this testimony. We're going to try to do more of these. Please join us this Friday for another episode of Courtroom Confidential, where we will be covering this case, plus the Crumbly sentencing, many other cases taking place around the country. Please like this video. Please subscribe. Would love to hear your thoughts on other things that you would like us to cover. But thank you again. I'll be talking to you soon.